Thanks for coming to Mayor's Night Out. As usual, the 1st District never fails to amaze me with a great crowd. Thank you very much for coming out for Mayor's Night Out. It's completely impressive how many people show up to this meeting. I sincerely appreciate it. I want to start off and introduce your 1st District City Councilman, Councilman Mark Kowinski. Give him a big round of applause, everybody.
Good evening. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to Mayor's Night Out in the 1st District. A couple of announcements real quick just to update you about things. One is that the Crime Watch meeting at Cal College is the 2nd Thursday of every month at 6:30, usually in room 200, if not in that one, in the black box room. Also, the Pulaski Park Neighborhood Association meeting is the last Tuesday of every month at the American Legion Post 428 on Goslin, and that is from 6:30 to approximately 8 o'clock in the evening too. An announcement regarding the Hammond Mohawks, Polka Mania is coming. Look for details in June. It's always a big event. They asked me to mention that a few times before the event. I believe it's around June 9th, but we'll get more details and times and dates to you as time comes. Also, tomorrow is the FDR Democrat Club Candidate Night at the Cavalier Inn, and that takes place starting at 6 p.m. for Democrats who are interested in expressing their views and asking for votes. And with that, I will introduce our mayor, the Mayor of Hammond, Mayor Thomas M. McDermott.
Thank you, everybody. Welcome to Mayor's Night Out, 1st District, Lost Marsh Clubhouse. Just got done knocking on doors in Goose Island and came right over here to do Mayor's Night Out. I want to start off with a press conference. We do this every once in a while, especially if it makes a lot of sense to do the press conference in that particular neighborhood. So if you guys don't mind, I do have members of the press here right now. I want to remind everybody that we're being taped right now in a couple different angles from GoHammond.tv. This is taped live on the internet now. I hear a lot of people talking about how cable television used to cover the council meetings and we should get it back on cable television. One of the things about cable, Comcast in this case, Comcast only targets 1/3 of our city's residents, whereas the internet access is available to all. We think it's a good investment for our city. It was a small investment. It is airing live right now on GoHammond TV and also will be available on demand basically without pay. Obviously you don't need to pay for it. You just click on it after a couple days and you'll be able to watch this whenever you want. So I wanted to remind you about that. It's a new function. This is only the 2nd Mayor's Night that's appeared live. So I want to talk to you about the Robertsdale floodplain changes. In March of 2006, I began an appeal process to the floodplain mapping and information used by the federal government in creating the flood maps for Robertsdale. This is in particular to Robertsdale residents only. Today I'm here with good news. On March 4th, 2011, which happened to be my birthday, I received a letter from the federal government, from FEMA, indicating that the city of Hammond has been successful in obtaining a revision to the current floodplain map. The proposed change is considered preliminary by FEMA until they finalize all their proposed map changes for the entire Lake County area, which of now is scheduled for July 18th, 2011, when FEMA will be publishing their letter of final determination. Upon that occurring, and after a 6-month transition and review period, the new maps are scheduled to take effect on January 18th, 2012. The City of Hammond will mail information out to affected property owners upon the July 18, 2011 determination, which will include an explanation on how the process works. Also, information will be provided regarding the forms and requirements for either canceling or getting discounted preferred flood insurance, how to obtain a refund on the balance of a canceled policy and or a reduced premium to reflect a preferred policy should you choose to maintain the flood insurance on your property. Currently in the floodplain, there are 1,272 buildings in the Robertsdale area, including 1,016 garages and other outbuildings are located in the current floodplain. The City of Hammond has been successful in removing 74% of these structures from being shown in the regulatory floodplain. The map over here shows the structures colored green as those being removed from the floodplain, and those colored yellow are remaining in the floodplain. To summarize the number of buildings being removed, 946 buildings out of 1,272 are being removed from the floodplain. 743 garages and other outbuildings are being removed. That's the good news. However, if you're one of the buildings that do remain in the floodplain, I want to say this to you. The city's engineering consultant, Christopher Burke, and engineering department at the City of Hammond has been directed to begin collecting the necessary data and documentation that will be needed to prepare a separate revision request for those of you that are remaining in the floodplain. It is anticipated that this request will be filed sometime after the effective revision date of January 18, 2012. It's very important. When the official documents from FEMA are received in January 2012, and that process is complete, the city will again mail out explanation, information, and copies and other official documents, all right? Basically, I'm reading a lot of legal mumbo jumbo to you, but in reality, what we're talking about is 946 garages in Robertsdale has been designated removed from the floodplain. 946 buildings are being removed, 743 garages removed. If you want to see how that affects your particular piece of property, we brought the letters that we received from the federal government. We brought a map of Robertsdale so you could look at your building. I think this is very good news for those residents of Robertsdale, and I want to reiterate something the press release said. If you're one of the properties that are in yellow and you do remain in the floodplain, I want you to know that this does not mean that we're giving up on you. We're very happy to get the number of properties out that we got. And, you know, whenever the federal government gives you a chance to get out, you should take advantage of it. We're not giving up for those of you that remain in. And there are other parts of Hammond that we're still fighting for as well, particularly down south along the Little Calumet River. So I guess I could open it up. Don Novak's been working real hard on this. Don, do you have anything you want to add to this? No? Please?
What I would tell everybody from the beginning of time when we had the Goose Island people get removed out of the floodplain, the mayor basically said, the people are telling me they need to be able to get relief. I want to do it. Do whatever you got to do. So we started back in 2006. This has been going on with our engineering people. It's been going on constantly. It's been a battle till very recently. We've had success, and we're going to continue to fight for the balance of the people that are left in this part of town, just as we are in the south part of town currently.
Thanks, Don. Stan DeStotney, our city engineer, has also been intimately involved in this project.
Yeah, for the residents that are still in the floodplain, we're going to have an engineering firm out there. They're going to be surveying the area, shooting elevations. So they're going to be knocking on your door and asking to come on your property so that they can get an elevation next to the building. That if anybody has any questions after the meeting, I'll be up by the map and I'll be able to explain what's going to happen. But this was a very long, drawn out process. FEMA did not want to let anyone out of the floodplain. It's an insurance pool, and they want to generate just as much money as possible. This was very, very difficult to pull off.
Thanks, Dan. My chief of staff, Rick Kalinsky.
No, Don is really the catalyst for this. Did a fantastic job. He's a man of few words tonight. I understand that. There are two maps, one in the back and one there. I just want to say, and I really blatantly, I don't care election year. This has nothing to do with election year. Look at the time of the letters that were stated, and I want to point that out, Mayor. This is something back in 2006 when I was also not chief of staff, but in a meeting working with you, Don, and Stan, this was something that the mayor actually said, let's get it done. I mean, the bottom line, this is a tax on our residents, and if we can actually save our residents money, the mayor said, let's get this done. So, Mayor, thanks for giving us that direction. I appreciate that.
I appreciate it. We want to open it up for questions. If anybody has questions in particular, this would be an appropriate time. Of course, in the very, very back, there's a question. Donna, who is our coordinator today. Donna, could you run the microphone back there?
On my way.
It always seems like it works out. It's the people furthest away who have the questions.
Where am I going, guys? Okay.
I have a bill here for flood insurance for May 22. What do I do with it?
What's that, ma'am? Could you repeat that?
I have a bill now I have to pay for flood insurance, May 20th.
Anything that we're talking about right now, the soonest it will take effect is January of 2012, man. So you would have to pay, that should be your last flood insurance bill, assuming on that map you're one of the green properties that's coming out of the floodplain, okay? You still have to pay that bill, though, and that's unfortunate, but, okay? Thank you for the question. Any other questions about floodplain, flood maps, Robertsdale? Very front, Donna.
Where am I going?
Well, very front row. Right here.
I was told by Javier Hernandez that works for State Farm that the infrastructure in our neighborhood has a lot to do with us getting off of from paying flood insurance, like streets and sewers. Is that true?
Well, before I pass off to Stan, I do want to mention that your neighborhood is safer from floods because of a big project that we're undergoing right now is the pump station that we're building that's going to help the pumping capacity of this neighborhood dramatically, Robertsdale, Whiting area. So we're undergoing that project right now, and it's scheduled to go online in July, Stan?
July 1st.
July 1st. So, Stan, did you want to jump in on this one?
Yeah. Basically, the flood insurance rates are set because of the elevation of your property. Infrastructure comes into play. Infrastructure is an issue for the few homes that are still in it. There's some concern that the pumping station over in Forsyth Park, if there was a failure of it, that flooding could occur by those homes. So as part of our improvements and our study on the balance of the homes, we're going to be looking at the elevations of the existing homes and improvements we can put in at that station to make sure that the station is never not functional. But basically, the main reason is the elevation of your property. That's the main criteria.
Okay, questions about the floodplain, Robertsdale, flood maps in Robertsdale? If you have questions also, you can come up. As Rick indicated, we have a map back there that I did not see. We also have a map up here. If you want to just quietly go over there and check out the map, feel free to do so. I'm sure each particular property is identified, by site. So if you could pick out your property on that map, you could determine whether or not this is going to affect you. Any other questions about this? All right. Any questions from the press? Thank you very much. All right, as you all know, Mayor's Night Out is a program that's generated by your questions. I have a table. Is it outside the door today?
Right in the back
I can't
there.
see.
Carmen's back there.
Carmen's at the table. Oh, there's Carmen. There she is. Carmen's at the table back there. We have questions. This is generated by your questions. So please fill out a written question, and then we'll read it out loud. And then let's say the question's about the pump station in Robertsdale. If you had a follow-up question about the pump station in Robertsdale, raise your hand, and Donald will come up to you. If you had a question about streets or something like that, we'd ask for you to please fill out a form, and we'll read your question out. So we try to stay on topic with the raised questions, okay? So, what's that?
Did you want to do intros?
Oh, yeah, I forgot to do intros. My bad. We just jumped right into the press conference.
Hi, Don Novak, Zoning and Real Estate Manager and Floodplain Administrator.
Bill Taylor, Planning and Development.
Good evening, Scott Mitchell with your Sewer Department.
Beth Jacobson, Economic Development.
I'm Pat Moore with the Park Department.
Bob Lindy with the Controller's Office.
Kurt Cook, Building. Brian Poland, City Planning.
Ron Novak, Environmental.
Stan DeStotney, City Engineer.
If I have to introduce myself, I'm not doing my job properly.
Rick Kalinsky, Chief of Staff.
Mylon Krasinski, Port Authority.
Gary Gleason, Street Department.
Jeff Smith, Fire Department.
Sharon Daniels, Personnel.
Courtney Margraf, College Bound. Lolita Weems, Human Relations.
Juan Serrano on Sanitation.
Kathy Kazmerzak, Recycling.
Kelly Kearney, Code Enforcement.
Jim Callahan, Inspections Department. I'm the one that has the photos circulating around the room, and I'd like everyone to take a look at these photos. This was a drug bust last night, and this is what we experience more often than we like. And look at the conditions of this property, if you will.
Brian Miller, Police Department. Ed Crusoe, Hammond Water.
Chris Campbell, Information Technology.
Good call.
Maria Becerra, Housing Authority.
Donna Muta, Hammond Parks and Recreation.
All right, let's jump right in.
Do you want me to read them, sir? Because it's going to be kind of tough for me to get in between all
What's that?
the grade. I'm just going to go ahead and read them off.
Okay, hey, first off, I want to jump into a topic right off the bat. Pat Senior, where are you? Hey, could you grab the microphone real quick and talk a little bit? We have a ribbon cutting ceremony coming up on Friday that's particular to the North Hammond community. Could you talk a little bit about what we're doing out there?
I'm sure you're all familiar with Pulaski Park. I know the mayor spoke with so many people at the Pulaski Park, Pulaski Park meeting. We're going to have a ribbon cutting meeting at 2 o'clock at Pulaski Park. If you haven't come by and seen this thing, you got to come by. It's our first real shot at rehabbing a park that doesn't have a baseball field on it. I mean, it's, you all got to remember Pulaski Park or Dowling Park. The parking lot's been redone, new buildings, new tennis courts. We're putting a skate park in there, new playground equipment. So you owe it to yourself to come out there tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Or if you can't make that, the park will be open after that, and just take a drive-by and take a look at what's going on.
That was Friday, right, Pat?
That will be Friday at 2 o'clock, I'm sorry.
Friday at 2 o'clock. Great, thank you very much. All right, Donna?
Okay, good evening, Mayor, department heads, residents of Hammond. Our first question is regarding economic development. What types of incentives can the city offer Potash Corp to finalize an agreement to locate their rail transfer facility to Hammond?
Great question. Very timely. I know Phil Talon's around here someplace. And Beth? All right, why don't you guys jump in?
We're currently in negotiations with Potash Corporation, and there are also other cities and states that Potash is looking at, and so I don't want to get into specific details about specific incentives or amounts to put us in a bad position negotiating with other places, but I can say that we're hopeful, and we've had many meetings with them, and we're very optimistic about them coming to Hammond. Do you want to add anything to that, Phil?
I think most people, you could drive by the IHB property and see that quite a bit of work has been done.
Why don't you describe the footprint, since we're not in that part of the city right now?
Sure. The specific spot we're talking about for where Potash would locate is right off of Hump Road, which is in between Indianapolis Boulevard and Columbia. If you know where Summer Street is, if you took Summer, you would head north on Hump Road and you would run smack dab into the spot that they're talking about. However, to get a good idea of what I'm speaking about as far as the grading that they've been doing in the entire property, if you drive on Columbia Avenue, when you get by the IHB Railroad property and take a look, you will see that they've done major improvements to that area. They are definitely preparing the land for projects. Whether or not we land Potash, we're working on it. We're working real hard. We feel like we have a great opportunity and a good chance competing against these other communities. But we also have 3 or 4 other projects that are talking about locating at this area as well. So there's quite a bit of possibility there, Mayor. And as you know, I think we are in good position. It's just a matter of when is Potash going to come out and say we've picked a location.
Potash is, the thing about that project that's so nice is it's a huge investment. It's 100 million in that ballpark?
And when you combine all of these projects combined, you're getting into major numbers. You're getting into the $300-400 million number if everything comes to fruition.
Right. The thing about Potash that differentiates it is Potash it's a magnet for other companies. So if Potash comes, there's very good reason to believe 3 other companies will follow it. Potash doesn't bring the amount of jobs that we're looking for. It brings the investment we're looking for, which is a great thing, obviously. B.C.&D, companies B.C.&D, which, anonymous?
Anonymous. They won't speak about any of the company names at this
One of
time.
those companies is currently doing work on the site, though. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. So, and these companies, which they refer to as companies B, C, and D, these companies are the ones that are bringing the jobs and the further investment. So I think, like Phil pointed out, I think it's a very good sign when you see site preparation work being done in an area where site preparation work hasn't been done for a very, very long time. So it makes us excited to see this work going on there, and if we could pull off this deal, obviously it would be great for the city. This is a part of the city that badly needs reinvestment too. So I don't know whose question that was, but if we didn't hit it in particular, sir, do you want to follow up?
Yeah, just specifically maybe what you can't get into negotiations of what types of
I could talk a little bit about that. They're looking for all types.
examples of, excuse me, sneak up on. What type of examples, I guess,
What they're looking at in particular, we're looking at.
Well, in general, incentives that the city could offer.
Well,
for them
what
to-
they're looking at, what we can offer is a TIF district, which is being talked about, and they're looking at a TIF and a tax abatement, which is very unusual, all right? We don't couple very often, all right? What we're looking is, we want to be able to bring in that business and the investment and the jobs, and if you know this part of the city, you know, Hump Road and Summer Street, we have some eyesores and some old buildings that have been abandoned for a very long time. We want to also be able to improve that area visually. So this project is good on a number. If this project comes to fruition, it's good because it brings the investment, it brings the jobs, and we could use TIF money theoretically to visually improve the area, which would be a major win. You know, so the two tools that we could deal with are the ones that I'm bringing up right now: tax abatement and TIF. The combination is sort of confidential because we're negotiating right now. All right. But that's what we're primarily talking about. The state is involved peripherally? I mean, as far as incentives, are they really involved?
The state has offered some incentives.
Job
but
training and stuff like that?
Correct. And,
Right.
and you know, their incentives are all based strictly on employees only. So, you know, the numbers are not high what they're offering, but again, you have to look at the project and what it's going to bring after this project comes. And that's where the city of Hammond should be excited if they choose us.
Did we answer your question, sir? Thanks. Any other follow-up regarding the potash deal? I know it's not the first district, but it's hard to believe that it wouldn't affect us all in a very positive way if this happens. So keep your fingers crossed for us on that one. All right, we'll go on to the next question, but before we do that, I want to thank the public officials that are coming out. First off, I want to start off with Councilwoman at Large, Kathy Pasalic. Thank you very much, Councilwoman. I'd also like to thank Councilman at Large, Dan Spitali. Thank you very much, Councilman. Hammond City Clerk, Bob Golick. Thank you very much, Clerk Golick. And last but not least, Councilman at Large, Bob Markovich. Thank you very much, Councilman. All right, we'll jump right back into the questions.
Okay,
like I
Mayor.
said, this is being aired live on GoHammond.tv as we speak. So,
Next question regarding TIF. Who is responsible for administering tax increment finance funds, and what community projects do these funds currently support?
a lot of questions about TIF. Go ahead and jump in, Phil.
Well, who is in charge of administrating the funds would be the Redevelopment Commission. The Redevelopment Commission is made up of 5 members, 2 of which are appointed by the council, 3 are appointed by the mayor, and the Redevelopment Commission approves every TIF payment that is made throughout the city. I believe off the top of my head, we have approximately, I think we have 7 TIFs right now. And, you know, I'm not sure if everybody knows what a TIF is exactly, but I'll get into it, the very basics of a TIF. Typically, you're going to create a TIF for one of 2 reasons, either economic development or redevelopment. So economic development, if there's opportunity in an area where you create this TIF, you know, nowadays when you're negotiating with companies to come to your city, there's a good chance they're going to be asking for incentives. And it's very easy to say, well, we don't want to give them incentives, that we want them to just come to our city on their own. But typically, if you're not offering incentives, they're going to go to a different community that is offering incentives. So it's nowadays, it's a very competitive market out there. And to try and draw in some of these companies or to lure some of these companies to come in, TIF is probably one of the most popular economic development tools out there. So creating a TIF, you basically pick an area, what we call an allocation area, and in that area, it could just be land. Nothing could be there. You create the TIF. Now, when a business is coming in, we basically look at their projections of what kind of tax increment they're going to have over, say, a 20 or 25-year period. Once we look at those projections, and you know, just for example, we think they're going to, you know, it's going to create $1 million in taxes over 20 years. We now can talk to this company and say, up front, we could potentially give you $200,000 up front, and then, you know, as you're paying your taxes, you pay back that amount. And I'm trying to give a very basic example because it can get complicated. The other reason to create a TIF is for redevelopment, which means an area that's blighted, that has issues, maybe old buildings, kind of like what we were talking about it by the potash site, is the old SCM Glidden plant. If you know the SCM Glidden, there's about 12 buildings there. They're all deteriorating. They're all eyesores. There's graffiti. We've had complaints of people living in and out of the buildings. So there's another reason there when you create a TIF, you can use these dollars to demolish the buildings, clean up the land, and prepare it for a new industrial user to come in, where now it becomes a productive piece of property for the city. So I hope I'm not giving too much information, but that's typically why you would have a TIF. The redevelopment commission administers all dollars from TIF, and projects vary depending
And
on where the TIF is
when a
located.
TIF is approved, it ultimately is approved by the state of Indiana too, right? Goes DLGF or somebody like that.
Well, it does have to go through redevelopment, the council. I'm not sure that it has to be approved by the state. I'd have to check into that. We haven't created one since I've been here, but now that we're looking at it, obviously that information's gonna come up.
Okay. Well, if there's bonding or something like that, right? Right, yeah. All right. Anyway, is there any follow-up questions regarding TIFs? This is very unusual to get questions about TIFs at Mayor's Night. We've done 80 Mayor's Nights, and I'd say having 2 questions in a row on TIF is highly unusual, but we're open to talk about anything, so.
Mayor, I'll mention real quick, the Goose Island Pump Station that Stan just brought up, that's
Good
gonna
point.
help you. That's paid for out of the TIF.
That was paid for out of the TIF from up here.
Absolutely.
Good point. And that was a $2.5 million project?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Paid for out of TIF?
Yes.
All right, thanks. Yeah, Kalinsky?
You know what, I want to point out what Phil said, is a lot of the TIF money that's used when an economic development area or redevelopment area is created is for public improvement issues. Great comment, Phil, is the Goose Island Pump Station. So things that will benefit you as a community. It's our way of capturing dollars up front to help out the community, and especially an older community like Hammond. When people come in, it's not like they're taking a barren piece of property. A lot of times they have to demo something, they have to clean up the land because there's been some environmental issues on the land. So the cost of doing a redevelopment project is far greater than an economic development project. But my last comment, Mayor, is we are currently in the process and actually have closed our largest TIF in the city of Hammond, which is the marina allocation area. $131 million in assessed value back on the tax rolls as of this year. So a lot of people criticize TIFs, but once you've used the TIF and you're done using the TIF, it's proper to retire that TIF. So really it lowers your tax burden. That's that's equivalent to bringing in 6 major economic development projects to the city of Hammond alone, is by closing that TIF. That TIF was used back under the previous administration to build this golf course. Now I know I'm surely not going to slander the last administration. There were talks about golf course overruns and things of that nature. The TIF was created for that, to pay for that. Guess what? The golf course is done. We didn't use that TIF to build this clubhouse. It's time to retire that TIF and give it back to the taxpayers, and that was another great direction.
Yeah, one last comment would be, a good example is in Munster on Calumet Avenue. If you've seen in Munster, they recently are having a new Panera Bread built, Five Guys Burgers and Fries, Chipotle, and I think they're having some office buildings. That was all done using TIF. I believe I don't know the exact dollars, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 million was given to that developer to make those projects happen. So a lot of times nowadays, if you want to get a Panera Bread to come to your community, and we try for things like that all the time, they won't come without some sort of TIF incentive or tax abatement incentive ahead of time.
All right, thanks, Phil. Any follow-up questions on TIF? Looks like we do. Hi, George, how's it going? Colts sweater, huh? Obviously.
How many years typically does a TIF last? I mean, as I understand it, their assessed value is not on our.
I'm going to pass off to the experts. All right. I can tell you that what is unusual, George, is we've been eliminating TIF districts, and that's a win for the taxpayers because when they draw a TIF district, they basically take the new assessed value off of your tax roll. So when a Cabela's comes in and increases the valuation of the city, you're not going to get that break on your taxes. If we come in and we remove the TIF district like we're doing now, that gives you the break. The taxpayers are going to see increased assessed values and lower tax bills as a result. Now, I'm not sure what the typical length for a TIF district is. For that, I'm going to pass off to Rick or Phil. Sure.
Typically 30 years is a sunset on a TIF.
But even more specifically, if the debt obligations have all been taken care of, you can close the TIF. A good example, because we just closed the Marina TIF, the Goose Island Pump Station and the Lost Marsh Mitigation Project, which had to be done, once these projects were the final projects that were happening in the Marina area, we knew at that time, now we can dissolve the TIF and let the funds roll back into the regular tax rolls.
Right. Thanks for the question, George. Any other follow-ups regarding TIF? In the front, Donna. We got a couple in the front.
I'm coming.
All right, you guys could go ahead and start. Ms. Grillo?
Where did the money come to pay off the marina TIF? How was it that they were able to pay it off so quickly?
Pay off the marina TIF. The marina TIF is not a debt. That's an actual account.
Would they not have to pay off bonds that are covered in the TIF district?
The bonds are paid off in the marina district.
Where did the money to pay those off come from?
The marina TIF. The marina TIF itself pays off the bond. The
once
marina
it's paid
TIF
off, you can
brings
get rid of
in
the
the
TIF.
money to pay off the debt obligation of whatever that particular project may be. So the marina TIF reloads every year when the tax payments come out every 6 months biannually. And once that is in place, if there is debt, that debt payment gets paid off from the increment raised in the TIF district.
Okay.
It's
We're starting,
complicated.
I tell you what,
It's complicated.
guys, we're losing a lot of the audience based on some real technical information. If you want to learn more about TIF districts, I have some really, technical people that are willing to talk specifics with you. Sir, did you have a question on TIFs also? Sure.
In Valhalla Park, I noticed last year, I thought it was pretty disgusting, that they're using the steel for the pipe that was not manufactured in the United States. We have so many unemployed people here, and it was manufactured in China, other parts in India, and only the valves were from the United States. Are we going to see something like that here, or that doesn't apply?
All right.
With piping.
All right, this is, I thought it was about TIF, because that's what we were talking.
Where did the money come from for that?
For Valhalla Park?
Well, for all that new piping you put in last year.
That wasn't the city of Hammond, sir.
No, I said Whiting,
Oh, okay.
but I said in comparison.
I couldn't tell you. I didn't do that project. Mayor Stahura would be appropriate to approach on that question.
If I'm saying, is anything here where we can favor American manufacturers and laborers?
Yeah. Yes, sir. I mean, I'm just, yeah. Sorry, I was on a different train of thought. I thought you were going to ask a question about TIF, and I didn't think it was going to be about.
Where that money came from? It didn't come from a cookie drive.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for the question. All right. We'll go ahead and jump into the next question.
Okay, Mayor, regarding environmental management, since the fall of 2010, a unit at BP has been making a loud, annoying noise that's given residents of Whiting and Robertsdale many sleepless nights. Has BP met with the city of Hammond to explain what is going on?
Thank you
and
very-
what will be done to fix it
Great
soon?
question. I knocking on doors today. Received a few letters in City Hall about this issue. Knocking on doors today in Goose Island. Heard a few neighbors complain about this issue. I know I got a letter from BP. I was under the impression that BP sent that letter to everybody. I guess they did not. Ron, could you brief the neighbors on what's going on with that project?
We had several Hammond residents complain about this low vibration noise that comes from the refinery. But it's important to note that that unit is in the city of Whiting. Whiting has a noise ordinance very similar to our noise ordinance. For our citizens, we made a contact with BP. I met with BP's chief environmental person last week and advised me that in regards to the location of the noise, it's at their power station. And what they had done is modified the station in order to reduce air pollution, basically NOx emissions, nitrogen oxides. As part of that project, they put in large fans that help exhaust the emissions out. They believe these fans, which are new to the facility, are the source of this low vibration noise. They have hired an acoustical firm to determine that was the location, and they are now looking at options in regards to controlling this. The power station there has 5 separate stacks. Some suggestions were, gee, can you cut it down at night? They can't cut it down at night. That's a 24-hour operation. That power station needs to run continuously. What the acoustical engineer has recommended at this particular time to put an attenuator in there. I guess that's a 50-cent word for muffler. They have identified it. They are in the design phase. They will then be in the construction and installation phase for 1 unit. They want to make sure before they make a total commitment on this that they do have a solution to the problem. This is not an inexpensive undertaking. This would be like specifically designing a muffler for a unique situation that allows them to continue to make power and doesn't retard that process, but also minimizes the noise. My guess is that this is going to take a period of time to do. The good side is BP has recognized the issue. They have hired individuals to identify it and work on a solution. But also for those homeowners that have been impacted by this, they have offered their acoustical engineers to come to the individuals' homes to make determinations on what can be done in the home to mitigate those noises. I recommend you contact BP, advise them if you have a problem, and ask them to come to your home so that at least in the interim period, while the installation of the first unit is being done, and hopefully the other ones thereafter, something can be done to mitigate the noise in your particular home. Some people are impacted by this, others are not. So it's an individual basis right now, but the company is being responsive to complaints not only in Whiting, but in the city of Hammond. Any
Questions regarding the BP noise situation? We've had situations similar to this in other parts of the city, in North Hammond in particular, with companies from out of state, in this case, creating noises that were impacting residents in Hammond, and it gets troublesome when you deal with other, in this case, another municipality like Whiting. Although Whiting and Hammond have a great relationship, it does get a little bit more complicated because we're not directly in control of the situation. Are there any other questions regarding this situation? Yes, ma'am.
I understand that it's going to be, I understand it's going to be late 2012 before this is completed, according to some information BP gave. So I was wondering what, if anything.
Is that true, Ron?
They have not given me a time frame. What they have told me is the study has been done, the initial design for the first unit has been made, they are under construction. They indicated that the first unit would be installed probably this fall to winter time. I think the issue becomes one of they're going to want to study that, get data on it to see if that does the job. If they have a template, then it's a matter of construction and installation. If it doesn't work, it's back to the drawing board. So this is very typical of dealing with unique issues. So the end date, I think that's just a guesstimate at this time.
Okay. We will continue to monitor the situation, I promise you. Questions regarding BP? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, next up, I think this is Mylan. As a North Hammond and Robertsdale duck hunter, I'm very concerned about the 129th Street development on the south end of Wolf Lake. We duck hunters do not want any lights interfering with our William Powers duck hunting. Please, no lights on the south end of Wolf Lake. Thank you, and God bless Hammond.
Thank you to the duck hunter. That's going to be on the Illinois side, right? Hopefully you're not hunting in Hammond, Chief Miller, right? No discharge of a weapon? Chief Miller's not going to respond. Actually, we have listened to that request, and with the assistance of the contractor that's doing the mitigation work west of the toll road, north of 129th Street, there will not be any lights on the west side of the toll road. The parking lot will be located on the east side of the toll road. I'd like to thank especially Stan Dostotny and Ron Novak for that suggestion. It's going to be a little bit easier for us to patrol. The lighting going in right now is going to be green lighting proposed using solar lighting that's going to light the parking lot, and we'll see how that works out. And with that and Stan's blessing, we might bring that solar lighting all the way to Sheffield Avenue. So again, being proactive, listening to the duck hunters, listening to our friends on the Illinois side. We're not going to put any lights on the west side of the toll road.
All right, Mylan, since we're already talking about it, a year and a half ago, we were awarded $34 million from the Regional Development Authority, focused specifically in this part of the city. The first year we used this money, we completed the amphitheater. We're doing a lot of property acquisitions in this part of the city.
Right.
I know that a splash pad is under construction as we speak, and there's a bridge that's linking our Regional Development Authority project up to Mayor Stahura's RDA project, which is outstanding, by the way. Mayor gave me a tour of 193, the new baseball field on 119th. Why don't you explain a little bit about what the residents could expect to see this summer in regards to this $34 million grant? I want to point that out. It's election year, so you're going to hear funny things about that project. $34 million grant to the city of Hammond. That didn't raise your taxes a single penny. If we didn't use it specifically for what the RDA asked us to use it for, they would not have granted that money to us. So this is, there's no such thing as free money because it's all tax money, but the fact is, if they didn't spend that $34 million in Hammond, they would have spent it someplace else. And they're lining up. Valparaiso's lining up. Portage is lining up. Gary's lining up. East Chicago's lining up. Obviously, Whiting was successful. If it wasn't us, it would have been somebody else. So at the time, currently, at the time, it was the largest award ever given by the RDA, and it still, to this day, is the largest award ever given to the RDA. I'm proud of that. That's coming right here in your neighborhood. You're going to see benefits that are going to last for generations because of the work we're doing right now. Mylan, in large part, Mylan's responsible for that RDA grant, and I'd like to recognize him and thank him for all of his hard work. So, I know you guys know Mylan. He's a resident of Robertsdale. He's been running the Hammond Port Authority for most of my term, most of my administration. Mylan, why don't you talk a little bit about this, if you don't mind?
Mayor, could we start at the beginning with those jobs that we completed already? The Forsyth Park Road and Trail. We all know when we drive through Forsyth Park that is completed. There is a commitment to put additional parking in at the north end of that park, so don't think we've stopped. It's going to continue. Also, the Forsyth Park Little League Field project, that's 99% completed. Just a few more little things to complete: grass seeding, brick cleaning, and that was a joint venture also with redevelopment. So we'd like to thank redevelopment for helping out there. Also, the Wolf Lake Pavilion and Park, as you said, that was completed at the end of last year, the beginning of this year. We're going to extend that park, Mayor, right by where the turbin's at.
Yeah, you can see how you guys elevated that area back there.
It's been graded out. We're going to bring in some soil, some dirt, and some grass and irrigation, and take care of the rest of that park.
Basically, the thought is to make it a bowl, so if you're watching a show, it's like a bowl looking into the show.
You're right. It's going to be raised a little further back, and you'll be looking down. With that grading and work that's done there, we could probably fit in another 4,000 people. So that's going to help. Also completed was something we called the Lake Michigan Trail Connector outside the bird sanctuary in the north part of our parking lot. We had a lot of people going from one end of the beach to the other, from one end of our parking lot to the other, and we put a trail in there that's protecting folks as they use that trail, either by bike or by walking. Mayor, you're right. The pedestrian bridge is going on right now. That should be done in late November. So that Trail Connect will be made later this year, and that's on schedule. As you said, property acquisitions, those are taking place along Sheffield Avenue. The Wolf Lake Family Aquatic Water Gardens Play Center, that should be up and running the first or second week of July. And there'll be a concession stand there. There'll be a parking lot. The second part of that project, Mayor, will be a conservatory or a greenhouse. That'll be north of the 121st Street entrance.
Okay.
And then other things that'll be in design will be extending the park south and the trail south around the south end of Wolf Lake.
Yeah, eventually you're going to be able to take a bike all the way around Wolf Lake.
You'll be able to go around.
Including the tension wire islands that go out in the middle of Wolf Lake. It's
We'll
outstanding.
be able to do that.
If you have questions about that, Mylan brought along some placards over here so you could look more particularly at each of the projects that are proposed. I want to point out, again, when you hear your taxes went up because of this, or they could have used this money to do this, they're not telling the truth. This money is specifically intended for use on this RDA project, and it's money that would have been used elsewhere if it was not used in Hammond.
Mayor, just to let you know, this past Sunday, Easter Sunday, Pastor Vale from Whiting had a service out there, and probably right around 500
That's
folks
right.
came out.
Outstanding.
It was a great Sunday, Easter Sunday morning. We're going to have bass fishing tournaments, Kids Week.
4th of July.
4th of July, the naturalization ceremony will be there. Your favorite, Mayor Reggae Night.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
That's
Why is that my
scheduled for
favorite?
July.
That could be taken the wrong way.
The Northwest Indiana Symphony concert will be also in July, and naturally the Festival of the Lakes will be there. Toll Theater is going to do some presentations, and the 10th anniversary of 9/11, that'll be at the Pavilion as well. And then there'll be polka at the Pavilion featuring the Versatones in September.
Outstanding. Well, I know the Port Authority is responsible for making sure that that's a busy place this year, so great
Trying
job.
to make it that way. Thanks.
I hope it's something you're all proud of for many generations to come. So, does anybody have any questions about the RDA project? Yes, sir. Will Clark have their graduation program at the amphitheater?
Yes. Clark High School will have their graduation program on Friday, June 10th, weather permitting.
Hopefully it'll be nice. Thank you. Nice shirt, too. Appreciate it. I like it. Thank you. Any other questions about the RDA project? All right, thank you very much. Donna?
Okay, Mayor, moving on to engineering, we have a flurry for Stan. First up, very concerned about the streets in front and around Roosevelt Drive, Hammond Court, Burton Court, Benjamin Place, deplorable conditions.
All right.
Well, I've got good news. All those streets are we're gonna start designing them within the next couple of weeks. 120th Street, Benjamin Place, Roosevelt Drive, they're gonna all be designed. We're gonna be investigating the condition of the sewers. We're gonna be looking at the water main sizes and water main replacement throughout that area. And the physical construction might occur, some of it this year, but I think most of it will be next year. We're gonna try to do that so it's not tore up through the winter. And the councilman requested these to be engineered. And that's where we're at.
It doesn't always work out that way when you ask the question, and it just coincidentally, those are getting engineered. In fact, what you find oftentimes is it's frustrating for the residents, and I know it's frustrating for the councilman because there's so much need and so little money. So, you know, let's, it sounds like we have a lot of engineering questions. Why don't we go ahead and go through them, Donna? And one of the main reasons we want you to fill out a question, by the way, is we have your name and address, and it forwards that particular question to Stan. He files it so that we know that, you know, these roads got complaints from the residents, so we could actually follow it up as well. So, Donna?
Okay, Stan, since I was back here chit-chatting, I didn't hear if you mentioned lights, curbs, drains, Roosevelt Drive, Burton Court, Hammond Court, and Hollywood Court. I think it was the same street.
In the first phase of this, Hollywood Court and Burton Court aren't included. Roosevelt, the main sewer that takes care of that whole neighborhood runs down Roosevelt over to 120th and then out to Calumet Avenue. So that work needed to be done first before we could do the other feeder streets in there. So I'm sure the councilman will fund the balance over of the other streets during the next couple of years. Did you want to say anything?
Councilman, yeah. Hey, Councilman Mark.
I'm certainly hoping the mayor will help fund the balance of that. This is in response to a number of resident requests over time at meetings that I've attended, in that Benjamin Place, 120th are high and water goes back from the street into people's yards, and seepage is an issue and backup is an issue. So we have, keeping in mind, we have about 66 miles of streets in the first district. We are one of the oldest districts in the city regarding what's under our streets, regarding the sewers and storms, etc. Generally speaking, when we have to do a street, we have to do everything underneath it. When you look at that, it's usually somewhere from 500,000 to over $1 million per block to do the street. That's the curbs, the storms, the sewers, the trees, the lights, the asphalt, the sidewalks. And we get about $3.5 million per district per year, except that there are things that come right off the top, so that each district gets about $2.7 million a year to do streets. So if I'm doing streets and we have lots of streets that are in bad shape. And one of the things that happens is every time I do a street, the people next to those streets being done are irritated and angry because theirs isn't done. The truth is, many streets need to be done right now. And we're trying to do the best we can to get as many as we can. And sometimes we overlay to buy us some time. Sometimes we do some sidewalks to buy us some time till we get to those streets. Stan is always instrumental in voicing his opinion about what's going to be needed regarding backups that are still occurring, and we still do have backups in basements, and certain issues like we have Benjamin Place where the street's too high and the residents get all that water off the street instead of it running into sewers. So it's a complex issue that's very frustrating for me and very frustrating for the residents who are still waiting. And I can tell you that over 90% of the money that we get in gaming dollars goes towards infrastructure. The rest of it gets some help with the parks and with public safety. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. Okay. These seem like, if you have anything to add to the particular block we're talking about or that neighborhood, you could pipe in. If not, we'll just sort of shoot through all the engineering questions if you don't mind.
We got a couple. I think Mark just answered this, but so we don't get accused of putting these aside, I want to just say it.
Which is, by the way, I want to point that out. I've done over 80 of these meetings now. We ask every single question, unless, of course, like if we ask a few questions about the same topic, and then after a while we're like, okay, we already answered that question. We don't skip questions. So if you have a question, even a tough question, please go fill out a question form. We will answer it, I promise you, all right? This is the open format. So, Donna?
I think Mayor Mark answered this, but given all the money from the casino that has been used for projects such as the new golf course clubhouse, are there any plans to repair city streets in Robertsdale? Many of them are in terrible shape.
Well, you have to keep apples and apples and oranges. Councilman Mark is allotted 10% of the gaming revenue that comes in, and when he does a complete repair on a street for a city block, if we have to do a complete repair, he's looking at in the neighborhood of $1 million just to do that city block, to do a complete overhaul, which is usually what needs to be done. You could do an overlay, but that just defers the problem maybe another decade, and then we're going to be going back into your street again because something collapsed. So the best thing that the councilman could do when he does your street is to do a complete reconstruction, is what he does. The frustrating part of that complete reconstruction is he can only do a few of those streets per year, all right? The financing of the Lost Marsh Clubhouse, the financing of the infrastructure around the Super Walmart that's going in Roby, as well as the financing for the new yacht club came off the same bond issue. Paid for all three of the projects, all right? And all three of them are gonna come to fruition. Obviously, the clubhouse has come to fruition. Obviously, the yacht club has come to fruition, and they're under construction right now at this new Super Walmart, and it should be open very soon. Beth, you know anything about that? Do an update on the Super Walmart?
Yeah, is this on?
Yeah.
It should be open by November. If it's not open by November, they will be opening in January or February. I'm sorry, October. They have a period between November and December when they will not open a new store.
Okay.
But yeah, they hopefully will be opening in October. I know that they were talking about the rain delaying
So you're
them.
saying basically, if they don't open by the Christmas season, they're going to wait until after Christmas season?
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, they have a policy.
So hopefully things are going well. I mean, every time I drive by, it seems like it's going really well.
It is. They, however, did say that a lot of rain would delay the construction. So we'll see if it keeps raining like this, how much they're delayed. They'll be hiring 200 new people. I think in July they're going to start looking at that. They were at the job fair today, and I think had a lot of applications come in too.
Good.
So.
And I know Stan wants to say something, but I hear a lot of criticism about this project. The mayor gave $2 million to Walmart, and then people are like, oh, and then, the mayor doesn't want good paying jobs because he gives $2 million to Walmart. Let me tell you about that piece of property that sat there, slag heap, for 5 decades with no development whatsoever. We could have chosen to go on and keep it unproductive for years to come, or we could have invested a little bit of money into it to try to develop it like we're doing right now. We made the decision to invest $2 million into that project, and along comes a big box company and a couple hundred jobs and new shopping opportunities, Some people think we made a mistake, and I respect your opinion. I think we made the right choice in that case, and you're going to have new shopping opportunities. It may not be the most desirable. You know, some people want to see more upscale, and I could sympathize with that. But the fact is, it's better than a slag heap. It's better than a gas station. The fact is, it's going to be employing people. It's going to be paying taxes, and I'm proud of it. Stan, I know you were involved in the infrastructure part of that.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to say is that all that money that the city generated for that project went to infrastructure, not to Walmart. It's to improve both of those streets, 112th Street, which anybody that drives over to East Side know that street needed to be done, and Fifth Avenue. Both of those are being reconstructed. They're getting sewers. They're not going to flood anymore. You're going to be able to get through there, and it's going to benefit everybody, not just Walmart.
So, Stan, let me clarify something. So the two roads that we reconstructed, we did those jobs. It was never money given to Walmart.
That's correct.
All we agreed to do was reconstruct these roads leading in. Walmart didn't get a penny from us. True?
That's correct.
Okay.
We just
So
improved
I misspoke. I
infrastructure
apologize.
around their property.
Okay, I think we have a question in the front. I'm not sure where Donna is. You're pretty loud. Yeah.
I'm not even kidding, Palladium. I found that the largest toy store in Chicago, once before these slack houses took over, they destroyed so many family businesses that I don't care if they're even getting low paid, they're destroying family-owned businesses like there used to be on 26th Street and other places. And it's not just enough to say that they don't pay their workers adequately, and that they don't pay insurance to these people, but it's destroying the free and independent merchants which made this country great, not a bunch of dinosaurs from the East Coast or West Coast.
All right, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions about this project? Yes, sir. Dennis.
Yes, actually, my original question was answered by Stan Nostotny. I was going to ask about some of the streets in the water gardens, and because I have a lot of friends over there, and to find out when they were going to be done, and I'm glad they're going to be done soon. And for somebody that grew up in this area, and yes, I'm fortunate enough to live 5 decades to see that area where Walmart's being built. I think it's great, and not only that, I sit on the Port Authority board with Milan, and I can't tell you what a hard worker this guy is and what he's done for our area and how he's helped. And with that in mind, we also do something from the First District. We cater to a lot of kids down at the Hammond Boxing Club that the mayor supported me when we wanted to open it up. And we take in between 40 and 50 kids a day, and a lot of them are from the First District and from Robertsdale, and a lot of them go to Clark School. So I just wanted to say thank you to that, and a thank to these guys for working as hard as they do.
Thank you very much, Dennis. It's nice of you. Hey, Dennis. A lot of people don't know. I mean, the boxing club is off the beaten path, so to speak. Why don't you give the address so that people know? I mean, it's outstanding. If you haven't had a chance to see Dennis's boxing club, the Hammond Boxing Club, it is worth a trip. Even if you're not a boxer, just to go in and see all these kids, working so hard. Dennis, where is it located?
Well, it's on 250 Ogden Street, right down the street from St. Margaret's Hospital. And
it was where the Ogden Street pool was.
Yes, absolutely, was the YWCA, for
YWCA,
years.
right.
And we get a lot of visitors say they learned how to swim there and everything. And Donna's brought
Now they're learning how to punch there.
Yeah, that's right. Donna's brought some flyers out here. If somebody wants to take a look, and just come down and see what we're doing. We're doing a lot of things down there. We have somebody that's donating their time, tutoring the kids, and things like that. It's more than a boxing club for most of them. We're helping out a lot of kids in that area.
Thank you very much for bringing that up. All right.
I want to make another comment on infrastructure. We spend anywhere from 12 to $18 million annually on infrastructure in our neighborhoods. These are streets and sewers that are being rebuilt. It seems like a very long, tedious process, but Hammond's a very old city. We're trying to do this right. We actually modeled our sewer system about 12 years ago. We actually determined where the problem areas were, where the sewers needed to be upsized, where the sewers needed to be improved. This is all being integrated into this infrastructure program so that we're gonna have some of the finest streets in the state of Indiana once this is all done. We've already built about 50% of the local residential streets since the gambling boat got here. And I just want to do the job right. And that's what Tom wants. Tom says, let's do a first-class job. Let's get a quality product here.
Thank you, Stan.
And that's what we're doing.
Stan's been the city engineer in the city of Hammond now for longer than he cares to admit.
35 years.
35 years. Robertsdale resident. He knows his stuff. Public service at its finest. And let me tell you, when the pressure is on, I mean, when I took over, I didn't know Stan. Stan and I barely knew each other. I've gotten to know him very well over the years, and let me tell you, he's outstanding at his job. And, a lot of the good things that are happening in Hammond is because Stan knows what he's doing, and I think that's a very important point to keep in mind. Councilman.
Thank you, Mayor. Dovetailing on what Stan was saying about how many streets have been done in the city, keeping in mind we have 66 miles or so of streets in this district. Predictions were, when the both monies started coming in, that all the streets in the city of Hammond would be reconstructed in 7 years. We're 10 years out now, and I can tell you that we have done about 10 miles of streets in our entire district that are totally reconstructed, and we have about 55 more to go. So in our case, there is a lot of need for a lot of money to do a lot of streets that are in bad shape all together at the same time. So I understand the frustration that occurs among residents when they see a street getting done that they say it looks no worse than mine, and they're right in so many cases. It's just we can't do them all as quickly as we all would like.
All right, thank you, guys. I want to say thank you to a public official in attendance that I missed earlier. Lake County Commissioner Frances Dupay is in here someplace. Let's give her a big round of applause. Thank you. Thank you, Fran. All right, next question.
Okay, still on engineering, sir. Can you give an update on 141st Street, in particular the concrete slab left on the property?
All right, that's an environmental question. Ron, Pro Liquids, right? Yeah.
My understanding is, and maybe Jim Callahan.
Well, Chris Cantor was part of that also, and I see her back there.
Right. That case was transferred out of Hammond City Court down to Crown Point, and I'm not sure the status on it. I think Chris knows.
Chris, can you help us out here? Roving microphone. Yeah, Chris, if you can give us a little background on Pro Liquids, there's a lot of people that probably don't know what we're talking about, so.
All right, I'm not sure how much everybody, it's the old Taylor Chain facilities. Anybody familiar with Taylor Chain? 341st, it's right there where it dead ends the railroad tracks and then the state line's on the other side of the fence. There was a demolition that occurred, and in the course of the demolition, the concrete slab was not removed. Hammond City ordinance requires that the concrete slab be removed. Of course, the owner, and it's an estate, is balking because the cost, because they used to build things back in the old days to last. The cost is rather considerable. They did take down the smokestack reluctantly. Unfortunately, because it is in the state, city court transferred it out to the Superior Court, and it's in the process of being bounced around looking for Superior Court judge who will accept jurisdiction. But in the meantime, the smokestack has come down. They have cleaned up and remediated all the asbestos, which resulted, it was fragmented asbestos, which resulted from the demolition of the structure, and we are still pursuing the removal of the concrete slab at that location.
But as far as the environmental problems, they've all been taken care of.
There's nothing environmentally damaging or challenging about the slab itself. It's just a piece of clean concrete.
It's just an issue of who's going to remove the slab.
Correct.
Right?
All the fragmented asbestos has been removed, and
Okay.
the site is safe as far as that's concerned. The concrete is just a big old chunk of 6-foot thick concrete.
Okay. Any follow-up questions regarding 141st Street, the North Hammond issue? All right. 3800? No. I don't know. All right, no problem. All right.
Okay, a couple of streets that aren't in this district but have questions.
Sure.
Would like to have lights on the alley of Robin Hood Lane.
Okay.
That's the 6th, I believe.
Why don't we just take, obviously, the councilman is a huge part of what happens with the infrastructure money. Without the councilman here, it's hard to answer that question. I'll get together with Chico in this case, and we'll discuss whether or not that's a feasibility.
This is another one for the 6th. My concern is the condition of the entrances to Klein Avenue, both north and south. They're in terrible condition and need to be resurfaced. Who's responsible to get that done?
I love this. First off, Klein Avenue. This is a topic in itself. I want to rewind 1 year. May 1st, actually. Actually, April 30th was a day Governor Daniels decided he was going to speak to the Gary Chamber of Commerce. And he went to Gary, the Genesis Convention Center, and we had a protest, mostly Hammond people, a couple hundred strong, protesting the governor's plan to shut down the Klein Avenue Bridge. When this plan was announced, as outraged as you all were, and you were, the problem was the decision makers were being persuaded not to argue against this plan, strongly persuaded. I was very outspoken on this issue. I was listening to my constituents. I saw the increased traffic going down Calumet. We chose to be outspoken about how we didn't feel that the region was being served best by shutting down the Klein Avenue Bridge. We were told that the detour would take us an extra 1 to 2 minutes. I sat yesterday, I take that detour on purpose, often. I sat there yesterday for the drawbridge. I got the double whammy. I got the drawbridge, and then I got the train after the drawbridge. The double whammy, right? If you had triple whammy, it would be trains going both directions. I didn't catch that, all right? The fact is, this is completely unacceptable, the detour. This administration, and I know Commissioner DuPay was out there, I know Clerk Golick was out there, I know your councilman was out there, your elected officials were out there ahead of the curve, but we were flat out ignored. Now, a year later, when people are seeing the ramifications of this great detour that they gave us, it sounds like the whole plan is being reconsidered. I know that the Chicago Riverboat anteed up $10 million to help persuade the state that what their initial plan was a mistake. And from what I understand now, they're seriously considering moving forward. As chairman of NERPC, I'm the chairman of the Northern Indiana Regional Planning Commission. As chairman of NERPC, I see things that I don't get to see as mayor. I've seen proposals from INDOT that are seriously evaluating both. In fact, one would be led to believe that INDOT, by just discussing the new bridge, is inclined to go with the new bridge. I think it's very positive what's happening right now. The reason I'm bringing it up is 1 year ago, we all knew that this was a bad plan. 1 year ago, there were very few people willing to put their neck on the line. Very few. I was one of them. And I'm not here to pat myself on the back. That's fact. And I was abused for it. I was threatened for it. Your city was punished because of it, but we were right the whole time. And it's hard to get out in front on issues like this. When you go out in front and people start firing arrows at you, that's hard to do. That's the sign of good leadership. We knew from day one that this was a bad plan. Now we are a year later, and it seems like everybody else is starting to come around. I appreciate it, but we were out there in front. So I want to point that out. Klein Avenue ramps, this is a state project, obviously. If it was a local project, we'd be building the bridge right now, all right? This is unacceptable. I'm very encouraged, though, that INDOT's reconsidered, that Governor Daniels reconsidered. I want to be on the record saying that. I'm very encouraged by that because it's the right thing to do. But remember, the people that were at that protest, it's on Go Hammond. It's on GoHammond.com. I'm in there with a bullhorn, all right? Look at your elected officials that were there that day because those were the ones that were taking the arrows. And I know a lot of them in this room right now were there, but there was a lot of people that weren't. That's all I got to say. Stan, do you want to add anything to that, or Rick? I know Rick has been dealing a lot with INDOT in regards to this issue as well.
No, all I would say is to answer that person's question, the off-ramps on Klein are INDOT's. I mean, to really spark your conversation, it is INDOT. So, and last I heard is it looks very, very positive that INDOT is going to rebuild Klein. And I understand, and I don't know the number, but Ameristar is ponying up a little bit more than $10 million. So it took a lot.
Yeah, INDOT's actually been talking to Federal Highway for federal funding for it. So they'll probably get 80% from the Federal Highway. And if they build it as a 4-lane bridge instead of a 6-lane bridge, there'll be a pretty significant savings. And I don't think the spread is all that much. They were telling us off the start that it's going to cost $200 million to put the bridge back.
It was always even numbers too. It was like it went from 150 to 200 million.
Right. Well, now it's down to like 130, and cost of the permanent detour is actually starting to go up because they're going to have to build a bridge over the railroad tracks, and they've got problems with the lift bridge. If you've been over it lately, the brakes are bad on it. So if a truck's coming towards you and it comes off the bridge will move up and down. So watch so that you don't hit the leading edge of the opposite side of the bridge because it could probably blow your front tires out.
It's only 2 or 3 extra minutes. Come on, Region. We were out in front on that issue. I mean, and I'm proud of it because it was not easy to be out in front on that issue. Any questions from the audience about the Klein Avenue detour? I think we updated pretty well. If you have any follow-up questions, obviously, we're open to All right.
Okay, more engineering, Stan. A portion of Brown Avenue was rebuilt recently, and the sewer improvement has helped with the issue of water in the basements. But the alley on the west side of Warwick is significantly higher, and the water flows from there into the yards and basements on the west side of Brown. Is there anything that can be done to help this situation?
Alleys are always a real difficult thing because typically we don't have sewers in them. Usually they are higher than the streets on both sides. That's the whole idea, how the water drains. We could take a look at it. We've been looking at alleys. We've been adding drains. If it's a serious problem, you could just send that over to the engineering department. We'll look at that specific location and see if there's something that we could do.
Will do.
Thank you, Stan. Engineering questions.
This is, I think, for Gary Gleason in Streets. Bear with me. Could you please send a road striping crew to the eastbound side of 165th between Calumet and Homan? Even during the daylight, the lane dividers are very difficult to see.
Actually, we take a list over the winter. While we're out during the winter, that stuff all wears off. And as soon as the ground temperature gets above 60, 65 degrees, we start painting. So we usually paint during the midnight, so it's less traffic and everything. That's already on a list, so probably, well, as soon as the rain lets up and we get a little warm weather, we've already got everything ready to start painting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If anybody has follow-ups to these, please just raise your hand. We're just going to start shuffling through questions.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. What can you tell us about the mental health facility proposed for the old Carmelite home on Homan and Sheffield?
All right, this seems to be a current topic, but it's really an old topic. Councilman Mark and I, 2 years ago, the issue came to our attention a couple of years ago, 18 months, 2 years ago. And the problem we have is the new owners of the Carmelite home want to convert it to, or Tri-City, want to make it a mental health facility. It might a group home. Councilman, why don't you go ahead and, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Tri-City bought the Carmelite home, the old St. Joseph's home. They bought it actually from the Gary Diocese. We heard rumors that was occurring. We checked that out, found out that seems to be what was happening. We actually made a bid to the diocese to see if we could purchase it. They said that it was actually too late. They had been down the road with Tri-City and were going to continue. We actually spoke about this at a meeting for the first time, according to my minutes, in May of '09 at a Pulaski Park meeting. There were discussions with the city, Tri-City, and the Gary Diocese again, and we reported out again in July of '09. And then I believe we reported out in October one more time in 2010. So the community near the Carmelite home was aware that Tri-City was doing this. The city wasn't entirely pleased. We would have had a different vision for that site. However, they bought it outright. It was theirs. Now, Tri-City did tell us that in all likelihood what would happen is the 8-person adult unit that they have at St. Adalbert's, that I think has been there for about 10 years, would move to the Carmelite home. Along with those people, they were looking at another 20 or so adults that were living independently across Lake County under the supervision of case managers through Tri-City Mental Health, and they received funding to create one site, which would then be at the Carmelite home. They said if those two ideas didn't pan out for them, they would also consider creating office space for their staff at the Carmelite home. We don't know which way they're going. What we do know at the moment is there's a lot of work that's being done. Work that's being done according to code. It already was a group home when the Carmelite home for boys had it. So the zoning isn't changed on it. So they have a right to pursue what they're doing based on the zoning.
Could I add a little bit
You
onto
bet.
that, Mark? I talked about this last night. I was at the Pulaski Park Neighborhood Association. We talked about this very issue. We had a situation like this. It came up in Hessville. It's almost identical to the situation we're facing with the Carmelite home in Tri-City. The issue is this. We wanted to buy that building ourselves. We thought that we could convert it to like some type of public facility, like a Gene Shepherd type of facility in North Hammond. Would have been a nice mix with the community. As Councilman Mark indicated, we were rebuffed in that attempt, all right? I was worried about the new use versus the old use and the effects on the neighborhood, and we decided, first off, we didn't really have much of a decision as far as zoning was concerned. The prior use was R3, which is group home. The current use is R3, which is group home. As long as they're operating a group home there, we don't have any say or input whatsoever into the process. So the fact is this, could we have played politics to stop this? It's election year, and I don't know if it's a popular thing or not, but previously, before I took over as mayor, in Hessville, there was a similar situation that came up. It was consistent zoning. It was a liquor store in this case. They wanted to put a liquor store in a commercial district. It was zoned properly for a liquor store, and that council, this is a while ago, all right? That council blocked the liquor store from going into that location. And they looked real good during election year, and guess what? The owner of the liquor store filed a lawsuit against the city, and 2 years later collected $1 million judgment because the city had no right to block them. It was a commercial district. It was zoned appropriately for a liquor store, and unfortunately for us, we weren't zoned correctly. The fact is this, that home is zoned R3. Can we play games and block the diocese from building this facility? Yeah, we could. We'd look good during election year for you all, but I guarantee you, they're gonna file a lawsuit against us and we're gonna pay. It may be 2 years down the road, but we're gonna pay. So it's really a tough situation that we're in, because we're trying to work with the neighbors to make sure that the use is consistent with what you want, but we really have no choice about whether or not we could stop the project because it's zoned appropriately.
What we can make sure about is that it's built according to code and it's remodeled and reconstructed according to code, and we're doing that. Closer in proximity, a lot of you will remember when St. Casimir's Convent was approached by Tri-City, and Tri-City wanted to make it a group home for girls. The community fought that one, and it was again in the last administration. But what the community didn't hear was that they fought, and then Tri-City sued, and the city had to pay a judgment on it. So we actually did lose that case. So you got to be careful how you go and try to keep people in or keep people out of your community, and we're doing it the right way. Thank you.
Any questions on that? Yes, ma'am.
Health institution is quite a bit different when you're putting it in a neighborhood where you have 2 neighboring parks plus a school. I mean, is this going to are there going to be patients that this is going to be inpatient and outpatient? I don't remember ever hearing about this prior to finding an article in the Hammond Times November of 2010. It's the only article I've seen in the Hammond Times regarding this.
It's not a mental health center, it's a group home. It's different. It's not an inpatient unit, it's not an outpatient unit, it's a group home. There are going to be 20 people who are in independent living with case managers monitoring their stays or their day-to-day activity. These people are already out and about in your community. You just don't know it. They're already here, and they're leading lives and being good citizens and trying to be fully operational as adults. And they need some assistance sometimes with case managers who help them problem solve day-to-day living to get through to be productive adults. That's what they're offering to do at the Carmelite home.
And as frustrating as you may be, ma'am, and other people may be, really, we're in a situation where we can't do much. I mean, their use is consistent from the prior use to the current use. We could try to block this. We could, they could go before a board and we could block them at that board. But I guarantee you, they're going to file a lawsuit against us. And a couple of years later, you'll have the home there. Plus, your city will be $1 million short in a lawsuit that we lose to legal fees and judgments. So the fact is, we've been through this route. I've seen this route personally because I settled the lawsuit that was caused before I took over as your mayor. I had to settle $1 million lawsuit, and that's a bad day to be your mayor. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've heard about it. I'm a lawyer. I'm a lawyer enough to know that this is a bad path to go down, and it's bad for lawyer fees. It's bad for lawyer judgments. And the fact is, I understand you're frustrated, but there's really not much we could do in this case because they're not asking us for anything. They're not asking us for incentives to do this. They're not asking us for zoning changes to do this. They're just trying to do something that's consistent with the zoning plan that's been approved by us years ago. That's the problem, ma'am, is we really don't have any options to stop them, even if we wanted to. It's frustrating to say it, but it's the truth. Any other questions? Yes.
I can understand their concern about this, but part of the people I believe that they're talking about going into the Carmelite home are in the St. Adalbert's convent right now. And back when they came to St. Adalbert's convent, all of our parishioners and the people around there were very concerned about what those people were going to do in the group home and if they were going to have trouble. And I think they've been at our convent for 20 years or so, or at 15 at least, and there has never been a problem. I think a few times early on, if the kids were, at the beginning, they were younger kids that were from troubled homes. If they were out, if they were making noise, if they did something, they called Tri-City, and Tri-City has been nothing but a good neighbor to us at St. Adalbert's. I don't know if that helps you a little bit, but, well, all I can tell you is, and our directly, I don't live exactly by there, but it's our church, but our parishioners that lived right next to that rectory have never had a complaint about it after that, after they first moved in and found them and were concerned about it. So that's what I can offer to this.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Any other questions on this topic? All right, thank you very much for bringing that up. I want to thank the council president and the 3rd District Councilman Anthony Higgs for coming in here. Thank you very much, Councilman Higgs. Next question?
Okay, charter school, Mayor.
Okay.
What is the total of money bonded for the charter school? I've read redevelopment bonded 15 million loan from Horseshoe, 7.5 million and 10 million interest-free loan from State of Indiana Department of Ed.
Redevelopment. Phil?
This might be a better question for, actually, it wasn't redevelopment. This, I think Rick would probably be better to answer this question.
Okay. Chief of Staff Rick Kalinsky?
Did you hear the question, Rick?
You know, I apologize. I was
Charter
using the
school
washroom.
bonding.
If you
Charter
could
school
repeat that.
bonding. It was asking about specifically how the financial package was put together for bonding the charter school. I think the numbers she read off were incorrect. I didn't hear exactly.
Can you read the question?
Sure.
direct?
What is the total money bonded for the charter school? I've read redevelopment bonded 15 million, loan from Horseshoe was 7.5, and 10 million interest-free loan from State of Indiana Department of Ed.
No, the only thing that was
First
bond-
off, Rick, besides being my chief of staff, is also on the charter school board. I'm not sure if you're the chairman of that or.
No, just on this charter school board as well, just a normal board member. Two ways that the money was paid for the construction, or actually 2 sources, I should say. One was a bond, roughly about, I think it's about $11 million. Now that bond is being paid back from the revenue from the school. If anybody understands public education, this is a public school. So every kid that goes to that school, that school will receive a dollar amount per kid. So the bond will be paid back with the excess revenue based upon the money coming into the school. That's an $11 million bond. Secondly, there was a $7.5 million, there was actually $15 million amount of money that was given to the city of Hammond, basically borrowed to the city of Hammond back in 2004. It helped us at one time with a self-insurance program. And then another $7.5 million of that was for economic development, namely a charter school in the downtown Hammond district. That money has already been paid back. That money was paid back, I think, in 2009. The only outstanding bond is not on the city of Hammond's dime, but on the charter school's dime, and that's it.
And it's going to be paid based on the number of students that go to the school. And right now, there's a waiting list to get into the charter school. I could tell you that because my
Correct.
kid is on the waiting list. So.
And we had 320 kids the first year. It was 6th grade through 9th grade. Every year after, we're adding a grade. So then it'll go to 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. So again, as the kids come to the school, I believe, and the number fluctuates, somewhere in the neighborhood of $82 to $8,300 per kid comes to the school. The great thing about charter schools is there are a lot of programs right now, a lot of federal programs that will offer particular grants and things of that nature to help us with the funding of charter school too. So I can tell you the financials of the charter school are very strong, and really it's been a great success so far in the city. If you haven't had a chance to see the building downtown, check it out. It's up, it looks fantastic. We're finishing the interiors on it. It's a great opportunity, I think, for our parents and most importantly, the youth of our community.
I can tell you that, and obviously we're about to delve into an issue here I have a feeling a couple people feel strongly about, but I can tell you that urban cities are losing people, particularly in Lake County. It's no secret. Hammond, Gary, East Chicago, and Whiting have seen larger populations in the past. And we know that, through experience, through the years, that people have been moving away from the northern cities. I'm not going to just stand here and say the only reason they're leaving is because of the state of the public education system in Hammond, but that is part of the reason people are moving away. It may not be the only reason. It's very complicated why people are moving away, but that is part of the reason. And what we're doing, in my opinion, is giving those people an option. If you're going to move out of Hammond because you're unsatisfied with the public school system, we can give you one more option before you leave. We have Bishop Knoll and the Catholic school system in Hammond that is an option, but some people can't afford that system. Just to go to Bishop Knoll is expensive. $8,000 a year, maybe $8,500 maybe with fundraising counted. That's not an option for some people. So if you can't afford Bishop Knoll and you're unsatisfied with your local public school, the only option realistically, well, in this part of the city, you could try Whiting, and I know a lot of people in Robertsdale do that, and they're happy with that. But if you don't have the Whiting option, if you can't afford to send your kid to Bishop Knoll and you're unsatisfied with your public school, these are the people that are moving away. And what we're trying to do is give them one more reason not to leave, because that's the future of our city, is you, us, staying here and fighting for this city and doing what we need to do. If we let these people go and we don't give them these options, you can't be surprised when the population comes out every 10 years and it's lower. That's what we're trying to do. I understand there's people that feel very strongly about whether or not charter schools are a good thing or not. I can tell you, very pure reason, that's one of the main reasons I jumped into this debate, is because we want to keep people in the city, and I think this is one more reason for you to stay here. All right, so let us have it. I know that there's some people out here that want to talk about charter schools, so. What's that, sir?
They're a fraud. A member of the Chicago Teachers Union or House Delegate member for 15, 20 years. I don't even remember how long. And those so-called charter schools, they're mostly a sham. They're private property for people living off of the public funds. And they have not done good. They are non-union, and you have not addressed this whole anti-union thing that is centered in those chartered schools.
Hey, interesting point you bring up. I was just endorsed by the Hammond Teachers Federation 2 days ago. Isn't that crazy? I mean, you would think that if they hated the city so much, if they hated what we were doing, why would I get endorsed by the Hammond Teachers Federation?
But I can't do that. So, but I'll say like Adamski from Rochester, where this new fellow from, the Haitian fellow from New York is coming, they had 94% of teachers give it, this fellow, a negative rating.
Okay.
So it is not that good. It's not that great. Well,
I hope the Hammond Charter School turns out to be a successor. I really do. That's why we're involved in it.
But the thing is, it is using public money. Let's support parochial schools then. Why aren't we putting more for parochial? Because we say the separation of church and state. Is that going to be the answer?
Yes, sir.
Well, that only works in certain directions, doesn't it?
All right. Thank you for the question. Yes, sir.
Are there still the registered sex offenders still living?
Good question. That was a Times article that came out a year and a half ago. I know that the sheriff at the time was Sheriff Roy Dominguez. Followed it up shortly thereafter. I'm not sure. I mean, Chief Miller, grab the microphone, please. As you all know, Chief Miller's been the Hammond Police Chief for 8 years now. He does a great job. Tracking sexual predators, although you guys do it, it's primarily the responsibility of the county sheriff.
Yes,
correct?
it is, but we also follow up with them.
Right.
The problem was we had the LaSalle Hotel, which was right downtown, and the first time that we measured it, we used a traffic wheel, and we found out it was a little over 1,000 feet. So basically, The sexual predators were allowed to live there. To back up a little bit, the Department of Corrections, when these people were getting out on parole, they were giving them pamphlets and encouraging them to come to the LaSalle Hotel. And no, I'm not making that up. They really were. They were.
Who's they?
That was the
parole
Department of
board.
Corrections. And I got that straight from a parole officer who said, yeah, we were encouraged to do that. So at one time we had numerous sex offenders that were living at LaSalle Hotel. One sex offender can cause a lot of problems. You can imagine what 40 of them in a group think tank could come up with. The second time we measured it from the top of the school, and we used a laser rangefinder, and we found out that it was within the 1,000 feet. We immediately had those individuals removed. Like the next day, the sheriff came out, and we had all these people packed up.
Chief
and
Miller,
gone.
we also did something regarding the park, the fountain a little further down, right?
Correct. One of the things that we did is we dedicated the rotunda as a Hammond City park. Now, the LaSalle, I don't know if it falls under that or not. That would be a question for Chris if it was grandfathered. But any other buildings that are within 1,000 feet of the rotunda now have to also fall under that, because it's a park now, and you can't live within 1,000 feet of a park if you're a registered sex offender.
So the question is, are there still sex offenders living at the LaSalle Hotel?
Yes, there are. There's, I think, 2, but they don't fall under the term predator, so they can live there. There's different classifications of sex offenders, and without getting into too much, they're not in violation of the law. We did check on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
ready? Right here?
Yeah, well, Ms. Jackson? Oh.
My question is regarding the sex offenders that still live there. What is the classification that they have that they can continue to live there 1,000 feet away from a school that will be opening soon? And the other thing is, when it comes to the sex offenders, those children have got to walk right by that school, going home or going wherever they're going. And if they are still there, then when are they going to be required to move or relocate? Are you going to wait until the school is about to open, or what? I personally, as a citizen, would not feel safe with my child going to a school that was that close to where a sex offender lived, regardless of what classification he or she fell in.
Now, here's a question for you. Would you be safe if the sex offender lived 1,050 feet away from the school? Would that make you feel safer than if he lived 950?
If it were in the path that my kid had to walk, I would not feel safe, no.
Again, while I like the law, I like the spirit of the law that we're keeping sex offenders away from our school, whether they live 1,050 feet away or 950 feet away doesn't mean anything. It doesn't preclude them from committing a sexual offense. Years ago, I worked in sex crimes, and I know the mindset of these individuals. And just because they're more than 1,000 feet away isn't going to make them any more dangerous or any less dangerous than if they're 350 feet away from
Hey,
the
Chief
school.
Miller, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
In the city, I mean, it's in any city. First off, if we passed an ordinance, Hammond City ordinance, no sex offenders allowed in Hammond.
Absolutely not. Can't do it. It's unconstitutional. We'd
Thank
love
you.
to do it. I would love to do it.
Attorney Cantor, could you grab a microphone, please? All right. Chief, you might want to keep it also.
Sorry about that. I had night court tonight, so I got here late and got to sit in the
That's
back.
okay. You've been hearing the discussion, I imagine.
Of course. We did pass an ordinance that says sex offenders are not allowed in the parks. And in order to write that ordinance, I had to do a little constitutional research. And because the Constitution has what they call fundamental rights. You have the fundamental right to marry, you have the fundamental right to work, you have the fundamental right to travel. However, that traveling does not include traveling through a park. So we are able to ban sex offenders from a park. However, because of the constitutional rights, we are not allowed to prevent them from traveling on the streets, getting married, or employment. So that is why we were able to specifically ban them all from all city parks. And other than that, we have to work within the bounds of the Constitution. We cannot impede anybody's fundamental rights.
And that dovetails in what I was going to explain about the predators. There's different classes, and the state of Indiana allows some to live within that 1,000 feet zone, and we can't violate that. We can't push them out. If there was one that actually fit in that category, of course, we'd have them moved out immediately. Hope that answers your question. I feel the best way to safeguard your children is through education. not through just moving people 1,000 feet away from the school. You have to educate the children and have public education.
Not to interrupt Chief
and
Miller, but if anybody would actually go onto the sex offender registry and take a quick look, you would be surprised exactly how many sex offenders do live in the city of Hammond scattered throughout, and I'm sure many or most of them live within the walking path of somebody to somewhere. So, you know, just keep your wits about you, constant vigilance, and, you know, check the site and be aware of what's in your neighborhood.
And I'd like to point out also that right now the charter school has a waiting list. So obviously there's, and I'd like to point out, like I said earlier, my kid is one of the kids on the waiting list, and I'm looking forward to him getting accepted into this school. It's the only charter school in the country that has 2 universities that are working in it. Purdue Cal does the day-to-day curriculum issues, teacher issues and stuff like that. Ball State is our chartering agency. The fact is, it's not very often you have one university associated with the charter. In this case, we have 2. That's something to be proud of. We chose downtown Hammond because we do want to rejuvenate downtown Hammond, and you know, obviously these issues need to be worked out, but we also have to follow the law.
Can I ask about the union? You don't talk about the union issues.
Sir, unions have a right to form on their own. I mean, well, I can tell you I'm a board member. We've never been approached by a teachers or a group of teachers trying to form a union. So, I mean, if you understand union rights, you understand what it takes to form a union.
And I would like to point out that I'm very open-minded when it comes to teachers' unions. I was just endorsed by the teachers' union, so if I was approached by the teachers' union that supports my candidacy and they said, hey, we want to organize in your charter school, I've been endorsed by unions I'm a pro-union guy. Why would we shut the door on them? I mean, this is a part of the country that unions are very important in, so I want you to know that. Questions? Ms. Sanchez.
Mayor.
Sir.
With all due respect, it's not as simplistic as you claim. First of all, it serves less than 3% of the student population in Hammond. Secondly, not all of the students will be coming from Hammond. They come, as I understand, from all over Northwest Indiana. Secondly,
They could. They could.
Yes.
I bet you if you looked at the current population,
the other
90,
thing, the
hold
other
on,
thing
hold
about,
on,
the
hold
other
on.
thing about me,
Hold on, this is mayor's night. This is mayor's night, thank you.
I understand that, but either you
Hold
allow
on.
me to ask
Hold
the
on.
question or you don't.
If you look at the population of the school, you'd see 97% Hammond population. 97%. Could you theoretically come from East Chicago or Gary
May I
or
finish?
Munster or Highland? Yes, you
May I
could
finish?
theoretically.
May I
Realistically, these are Hammond kids.
May I finish?
Sure.
Thank you, sir. The other thing is that you are taking over close to $2.5 million from the public schools because 8,000 of that per student that is taken out of the public schools to go to the charter school. The public schools are already in danger and having not enough resources. And this idea that we're trying to keep people from moving out, I don't know if you're intending to move out, but because you're on the wait list, but it's also by lottery. Now, how are you going to ensure that somebody that wants to leave Hammond because of the public schools is going to be able to be picked by lottery? And so these are the kind of things that I think that you need to address. First of all, the cost, the kinds of resources that could have been spent on our public education where you have 50 and 60% of our high school graduates are dropping out. That's terrible. Hammond cannot continue to survive. You cannot attract new industry, with those kinds of numbers.
Right.
And so that's the only thing that I'm saying is that let's not be so simplistic because you're taking resources out of the public schools, and it's by lottery, and
Right.
I don't know how many of you buy
Thank
a
you, sir.
lottery ticket, but
I wouldn't really equate this as a lottery ticket. First of all, I'd like to thank you for, this is Oscar Sanchez, he's running against me for mayor. Congratulations, Oscar, this is your first mayor's night. So I appreciate, out of 80, you coming to the first one, it's really nice. I'd like to point out, it's my son that's on the wait list at the charter school, it's not me, I'm not going back to 6th grade, okay, Oscar, first off. Secondly, it is a lottery system, this is by state law, all right? I'm very proud of the charter school. I have a feeling you're gonna see the charter school scores are gonna be impressive, and it is another reason to keep people in the city of Hammond, sir. As indicated, it's very sad, actually, when you think about it. We didn't have a shovel in the ground. We didn't have a temporary home. We didn't have a permanent home. We just had a concept. Ball State chartered us. Purdue Cal put together a curriculum, and we sold it to the public, and guess what? We had a waiting list, hundreds of people long. Didn't have a shovel in the ground. That's disturbing. What it means is people are very unsatisfied with what's going on in the public schools right now, sir. I mean, and that's a problem, and it needs to be addressed. And I'd like to point out, in Indiana, in Hammond, the mayor has no input into the school city outside of persuasive authority. I can get on my soapbox and I can preach. I have no input into the school city policy-wise. And I respect them. They have their jurisdiction, which is running the schools, which is a very, very busy job. And I'm not a trained educator. I have my job, which is running the city of Hammond. All right? We've done great partnerships between us. We've done partnerships with the College Bound Scholarship Program. And by the way, the school city was on board with our charter school plan for the first year and a half it was together. So I hate to point all these facts out to you, sir, but I encourage you in the future to keep coming to Mayor's Night. I appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. All right, we'll go ahead and do the next question now.
Next question regarding College Bound, sir.
Yeah, speaking of.
Ms. Gray, your question?
Good evening, Mayor and everyone. I got a few questions about
Ms. Gray,
College Bound.
I hate to embarrass you. You have an open lawsuit against the city of Hammond right now. Let's just, right?
Pardon me?
This is, all right,
Can
go
we
ahead.
talk about College Bound?
I know, okay. But I just want to make sure my lawyers are paying attention here because you have an open lawsuit against the city of Hammond right now. So,
Whatever you say.
okay.
Anyway, back to College Bound. First of all, is the money gaming money?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How much money is allocated to College Bound each year?
We anticipate, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but we anticipated based on the number of students we projected. And I know that the cost is in the ballpark of $2 million a year. 450 students currently participate in the program. We've graduated a full College Bound class already, something we're very proud of. Hammond received a national award from the U.S. Conference of Mayors for the College Bound Scholarship. It was cited as the Program of the Year by the Indiana Association of Cities and Towns. It's been cited by numerous national publications. It's something we're all very proud of.
Okay, so $2 million a year. How much money has been left over at the end of every year? Are you using all of the $2 million or?
No, ma'am, it's based on what the kids do, where the kids go. It's a fluctuating amount of money. We had a projection.
Fluctuating.
Yeah.
So is there anyone here on your
Ma'am, I know
panel-
where you're going with this. I mean, if you
Do you
mind,
know?
we could kill a lot of time if I could just explain. You have a situation with your child, and
explain my
they've been through 4
situation?
years of college, and you want a fifth year, right?
No, this is the problem. Okay, there are four-year college degrees, BA degrees, and isn't the College Bound geared towards getting kids
No.
through a BA degree?
College Bound is clearly explained to all students by me. I just got done doing 8 College Bound speeches this year. I've done it every single year College Bound has been alive. Let me
But
tell you.
typically
Hold
it's
on.
okay.
College Bound is 4 separate scholarships. Each year, we verify to make sure the grades are being capped, the home is still homeowner occupied, the community service is done by the student. Each year, 4 separate scholarships. If the kid goes on vacation for 2 years and decides to go to college, they only got 2 years of eligibility remaining, ma'am. In your situation, if I'm correct, you are wondering why your student can't get a 5th year. And it's
No.
clear in the rules that this is not allowed.
This is what I'm wondering. Okay, because it's designed for a BA degree, which takes 4 years, but what if you have a child that goes into the program, but they're in a 5-year BA degree, a 5-year? Does College Bound just decide to drop the kid at the 4th year and not see them through the BA?
Just
And
like-
honestly, I know that there is a lot of money left over. I don't know
Ma'am,
the numbers,
let me
but
answer your
every
question.
year.
Yes, it does. Okay, and let me explain another situation similar. Let's say you went to school and you didn't want to take 15 credits per semester, and let's say in your sophomore year, you only took 12 credits that semester, and you did it for the full year. And you get down to the end of your 4 years and you can't graduate because you don't have the requirements met. You can't come back to College Bound and say, hey, I need a 5th year. It doesn't work that way,
I'm not
ma'am.
talking about a kid that's slacked off
Okay.
on a 4-year program. I'm talking about a kid who went all the way with a full credit, 17 to 18, 19 credits per year for a 5-year BA program. I'm not talking about a kid
All right.
that slacked off.
Ms. Gray, Courtney, do you want to answer this question? Courtney's the head of College Bound, so.
I know Mrs. Gray, I've spoken with
I don't think your mic's on.
And Dabberton didn't speak to me. I called him, he hasn't returned one call. Thank
Okay,
you.
and we actually, I mean, according to me, I have to honor, you know, what the administration created in 2006. Of course, we want you to finish, but it is for every student. The first application you sign says per year for 4 years. We even gave you the option to file an exception, which you have, and that's even passing it on to the 7 members to vote on a decision. I mean, in the audience right now, I see a few college-bound families, and I know one, for instance, their son did have to go for a 5th year, and they didn't even come to me because they knew it was only 4 years.
I think the way you could look at it, ma'am, is you should be happy. There's less than 8 cities in America.
tell me
Hold on. There's less than 8 cities in America that offer something even close to what we're offering. I think that, you know, ma'am, all due respect, the fact is we have clear rules and we have to follow the rules. If we made an exception for you, we would open the floodgate.
Well, you do have an exceptions committee.
Well, ma'am, we're not
You
even
do
going to
have an
consider it. I hate to say
exceptions
it.
committee, and also, you're talking about a kid, now she's definitely
Ma'am.
talking about a kid that needed an
Hey,
extra
ma'am.
year because
Why don't we talk
they
about it
probably-
afterwards? This is bogging down about a particular issue. The fact is, ma'am, I think we fairly stated your case. I know you're not satisfied with the results, and I apologize for that. Does anybody have any other questions about College Bound? Yes, right behind you, Donna. Right behind you. Gentleman right there. Mr. Gamino.
Now that you mentioned College Bound, one thing that I never really did understand about the College Bound program is and I brought this up from day one when I found out about it. I mean, it's a great program. It gives kids a lot of opportunities here. But the thing I never could understand about it, isn't this program inherently discriminatory toward renters? I mean, that they're not, you have to be a homeowner in order to qualify for the program?
That's a great point. I mean, it came up.
I don't know. I mean,
The fact
I'm not a
is,
lawyer.
no, Mr. Gamino, it's a great, I get asked this question from the students every time I give a presentation, so it's totally fair and I appreciate your question. You know, I make no bones about it. Why did Hammond decide to invest in this great program? First off, to improve education. That's a good for any community. We did studies at the time that showed Hammond, Indiana lagged in the college-educated adult population by 10% compared to the average American city. So obviously, encouraging kids to go to college is good. I think most people would agree with that. Second, Mr. Gamino, we want to sell homes. We want to encourage home ownership. We want to keep you in Hammond. So keeping people in Hammond, encouraging people to move to Hammond, that's one of the main reasons the Civil City invested a couple $1 million a year into an education program. All right? I've received that question many times, Mr. Gamino, and it's totally legitimate question. There are programs out there for those students, though, and I do talk to them about that. 21st Century Scholarship is where we encourage them to pursue, you know, the 21st Century Scholarship. So there are other options out there, but that's a legitimate question. I get asked that a lot, so I appreciate it. Any other questions regarding College Bound? All right. Donna?
Okay, Mayor, I think this is for Controller Bobby Lundy. Bear with me. Many of the records on Go Hammond website, budgets, gaming reports, and festival P&L report are out of date, inaccurate, or do not conform to Indiana statute. Would you consider having a small workshop or seminar to explain Hammond financial reports and records?
Actually, that's partially true. There's out of date, if you want to say records, it's not out of date records, it's historical. I put records on there from 2006 all the way up to the present time. The records that are on there are only audited records. They're audited by an independent agency, okay? So any draft records that I have, I don't put on there until they're audited by an outside independent agency, so there's nothing on there that has mistakes in it or, you know, might mislead a user of a financial statement. So that's why if there's not a financial statement on there, it's because the financial statement hasn't been audited yet by an outside independent agency. Secondly, I don't choose the form in which I report. The state of Indiana determines how I report the financial statements of the city of Hammond. So if you're a stockholder in a company and you're used to looking at corporate financial statements, government financial statements look a lot different, and that's not because I'm reporting differently or because I'm trying to confuse you or mislead you. It's because I'm reporting according to the requirements by the state of Indiana. So on all those documents that you see on there, a lot of them you will see the state seal that says they were audited by the State Board of Accounts of the state of Indiana, which is an outside independent agency.
Thank you very much, Controller Lendy. All right, let's jump back into by the way, whoever asked for Bobby to give training on financial information, that's a first. I've been mayor 8 years. I've never heard that before. He loves this stuff. So I imagine if you want Bobby to put together a training program like that, I imagine it's not going to have the audience we have right now, but I think you'd be open-minded to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody that wants to learn about government-wide financial statements, let me know. As a matter of fact, I was in a deposition.
You can put it on Go Hammond TV on demand.
I was in a deposition, and the opposing lawyer that was deposing me, they want to get you to talk as much as possible, and I started talking about financial statements and finances in the city, and he asked me to stop. He said it was too much. So I'm more than happy to explain why the way something looks the way it does, or how you can correlate government-wide financial statements to something you're more used to, like a corporate financial statement.
Thank you very much, City Controller. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, actually, that was my question.
Okay.
And I perhaps didn't phrase it exactly right. The latest CTAR, or City and Town Annual Report that's on there, is 2007. Does that mean 8, 9, and 10 have not yet been audited?
No, ma'am, that's not correct. The 2009 financials are on there.
No, they aren't. I have the printout from the page. The latest one that's on there is, you have 4, 5, 6, and 7. There is a festival summary on there, and I would venture to say that was not audited by the state. It doesn't, the numbers in there don't correlate with what's in the CTARs.
Okay.
And so rather than get into the details of it, I would very much like to sit down with you, and I think rather than do a one-on-one, I think there might be other people who are interested in finding out why these numbers don't match up.
Ma'am, I'm on Go Hammond right now on my page, and it's on there, I can assure you. If you'd like to come up, I can show you on my phone after the meeting.
All right, ma'am, you know what? You guys could compare your financial stats after the meeting. And spare us the details, please. So.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Okay. After you guys get together, it should be interesting. So, all right.
I'll buy the coffee.
All right. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate the question. Donna?
Okay, Mayor, kind of a general for you. What role do community and neighborhood associations play in civic government?
Say again?
What role does community and neighborhood associations play in civic government?
Okay. I want everybody to think about this question. I'm going to answer you. I could tell you, first off, community groups are huge for me. It gives us a place to talk to people conveniently. I always talk about Pulaski Park Neighborhood Association, not because I'm here, because they're so organized, the meetings are well attended, and there's an actual record of the meeting, which is outstanding. You don't see that very often. I know there are a ton of active groups all across the city of Hammond, community groups, crime watches. I think this is a very, very wise thing to do for any neighborhood. In fact, in Robertsdale, this is no problem because you guys are very active up here with your organizations, just like in North Hammond, just like in other parts of the city. But you go to some parts of the city where their crime watches are non-existent or struggling or not well attended, or they don't have these community meetings. It's a sign of a strong neighborhood. It's a sign of a good organization when you could put together consistent meetings like that. So I could tell you that if I turn down a crime watch meeting, it's because I have a clear conflict. It's, at the end of the day, I'm an elected official. We all understand how I have to get my job every 4 years. It's wise for me to go to these meetings because of that reason, and it's efficient as your mayor. To speak to dozens of people at one time is a wise use of time. I think crime watches and community meetings are vital in a city like Hammond. Any other comments? I mean, how many, out of my department heads, how many attend crime watch meetings or community meetings regularly? I mean, most of our departments are involved and regularly attending. Kathy?
Well, I just wanted to say, not only have I been invited to Crime Watch, but I'm also I'm being invited by St. Joseph Church also.
Yeah, good point. So that was a pretty general question. Is there any follow-up? Okay, next.
Okay, Mayor, this was anonymously handed to me.
I love anonymous
questions. I
questions.
just want to make sure.
I have an anonymous question policy, but I'm gonna let you read it. But I have an anonymous. If I get an anonymous letter in City Hall, If it's like clearly aimed at a particular person, I typically throw it in the garbage, unless this seems like there's validity. Usually, people that really believe that there's a problem have enough courage, so to speak, to attach their name to it, unless it's a case like a drug house or a code violation or something like that, where it clearly makes sense for you not to.
It's
Anonymous
politics.
questions during election year
It's
are highly
politics. Do you want me
are
to-
highly suspect. Let's read it off for entertainment
Okay.
purposes.
We have two candidates for mayor, both representing that they are running from different parties against each other, Promesky and Janik, and they concealed that Janik notarized Promesky's ballot application for mayor, the worst form of deceit. Does politics get any lower than this?
Yes. Thank you, Kelly. It does. It gets way lower than this.
Thank you for answering.
I'm not going to even, seriously, this is a city forum. When I do my radio show on WJLB, I do my best to try to keep politics off the radio show. I'm going to do my best to keep politics out of Mayor's Night Out. This is clearly a city event. We're not going to talk about the particulars of the race coming up in 6 days. By the way, go out and vote in 6 days, okay? That's a general, and I want to point out, you can early vote also. You can vote right, I already voted, and I'm up 1-0 officially. I early voted at the Hammond Courthouse. You can early vote in any of the courthouses. You could early vote in Lake County and vote in the Hammond race. You could go to Gary Courthouse and vote in a Hammond race. You can vote in any of the courthouses during business hours, including Saturdays, anytime now before Election Day. So if you're going to be gone on Election Day, a lot of people that used to absentee vote, I say go early vote instead of the absentee. The courthouse, you know, it took me literally 2 minutes to vote. So, thank you, Councilman Higgs. I forgot East Chicago. You could vote. There's 4 locations: the county courthouse, Hammond, Gary, or East Chicago. You could vote in any of the municipal races, regardless of which courthouse you're in. Thank you for bringing up that question. We won't get into the political response.
All right, thank you, Mayor. This is kind of a combination. Unsure if it's Jim Callahan or Brian from Historic Pres. So let me just read it. While I understand some buildings on Indianapolis Boulevard were very dilapidated and should have gone, some of the buildings had great potential and were some of the oldest buildings should have been preserved to coincide with restoration of 119th Street. Every time we lose our historic buildings, they will not get replaced, or if they do, it's an ugly strip mall and we lose our pedestrian-friendly main streets. Can you hold off on tearing down the old buildings on Indianapolis Boulevard and encourage an attractive restoration and reuse to maintain or preserve the older architecture?
Okay, that's a great point. Maybe the councilman wants to insert influence here. Brian probably wants to jump in. I could tell you that I've heard both sides of the issue. One man's trash is another person's treasure, so to speak. One person sees huge potential in a building. I talked to another resident that wants the building down now. I mean, there are definitely 2 sides to this issue. I've had a lot of complaints from Robertsdale residents and Whiting residents about the state of the boulevard and the buildings on the boulevard, and we've been doing our best to follow up and eliminate a lot of the eyesores, and that's the fact of the matter. Councilman Mark?
Sure, thanks. This topic comes up frequently at the Whiting-Robertsdale Crime Watch meeting regarding the blight on the boulevard and what are we doing about it. And sure, you do have to weigh the significance of historical buildings, but you have to weigh it against what is blight and whether it's even reconditionable. I can tell you that people at those meetings generally give a round of applause when a code or building report another couple of buildings on the boulevard coming down. So I think by and large, the community has weighed in on what they want to see, and they want to see these old buildings taken down.
Thank you. From the other extreme, we have Brian, who's on the Hammond Historical Preservation Commission, and Brian's the counterbalance. Whenever we get the people coming forward saying we want to remove this blight, we always talk to Brian on the other end of the extreme. Not that it's a bad extreme, Brian. Sorry.
Apparently there's a situation that I'm not totally aware of on the boulevard in Whiting about a particular building.
It would be nice if somebody pinpointed exactly what building they were talking about.
But
Jen's apartment came down naturally.
So I'm going to answer that in a very general sense of really what historic preservation is about. Obviously, you know, there's a lot of people who have sentimental feelings about buildings. I admit I do too. but I look at things also very objectively from an architectural standpoint, from a history standpoint. Just because a building is old doesn't mean it's significant. And we have to look at that and evaluate that. And within Lake County, there is an inventory book. It's the Lake County Interim Report that was completed in 1996, and that evaluated all of the buildings throughout the entire county. And of course, it covers Hammond. And without me knowing exactly which building this is, and without having my book in front of me, I can't tell you what building is on that list or not. Within that list, buildings are even rated. An outstanding building is something that is obviously, by the use of the term, high architectural style, designed by a significant architect, whether it's a locally significant or nationally significant architect. Notable is just a little bit lesser than that, and then contributing is just generally a nice building. I think I would like to know more about the situation. I would always like to see significant buildings saved. There are incentives through, if something is listed on the National Register, there are incentives for buildings that are income producing using the federal tax credit program and the state tax credit program that can work for restorations. The state of Indiana also has a program for homeowners to do proper restorations. But the building must meet the criteria that is set either by the National Register for Historic Places or the State Register. If anybody wants to discuss those issues with me, I'll be more than happy. The Historic Preservation Commission meets on the first Tuesday of the month at 649 Conkey Street at 5:15. And May is National Preservation Month, and we'd like to celebrate our historic buildings.
Thank you, Brian. I want to point out that we're working in conjunction on the Boulevard project, in close conjunction with Mayor Joe Stahura of Whiting. You know, we are sister communities, and we're trying to work as closely with them as possible. So I do want you to know that this isn't just a dictatorship, us going out and doing this. Mayor Joe and I are consulting on a regular basis about these properties. So, Diane?
Kind of plays into my question. I was
Right.
just going to ask about the properties because there's almost a whole block there where everything was taken down.
Mhm.
And do you have any idea of what kind of development you want to come in, or is anybody being interested in any of it?
A lot of it at this point, ma'am, is just blight, cleaning up blight, old buildings that are past their prime, don't have historical value. Just a general cleaning up at this point is what we're trying to do. You know, some people feel better just looking at a blank piece of ground and looking at a building that's past its prime. You know, obviously, if people approach us with ideas, you know, we're open-minded to it, but we're going to work with the community, so. Questions? In the back.
You know, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
In regard to these historical assessments of these buildings, I remember Dennis Radowski, we had a building on the 1700 block of Davis, I think it was. Under the NSP program, it was regarded as having historical significance, and because of that fact, it had to be restored at exactly the way it was when originally built.
Mhm.
It just seemed like sometimes that, I don't know who designates historical status on a building, but it seems like sometimes they're overzealous with this kind of thing. When it comes to urban renewal, sometimes it's almost
Right.
an impediment.
I've never seen Brian grab a microphone quicker, Mr. Gamino. I want to point out before Brian starts yelling at you, I want to point out that in a lot of ways I agree with you. We had a situation in another part of the city where some homes were designated historical, and they asked to be removed from that designation because of the reasons you bring up. So it's a legitimate point you bring up. Now, Mr. Poland?
Yes, point, counterpoint. All right. NSP properties, just to talk about that point. If you understand that NSP, it comes from the funding, it comes from the federal government. And when the federal government gives you the money, the golden rule, those that have the gold set the rules. And what that means for us on a day-to-day basis, because I do work on this part of the NSP program, the federal government has set up what they call the environmental review process. And anytime federal funds is used, you must go through this process and determine if there's any positive or negative effect on historic buildings. So all the NSP properties are being rehabbed. I'm actually looking at the specifications and seeing whether they comply with the appropriate standards. Your statement that they are restored back to the original is not an accurate statement. The process is called historical rehabilitation. That is not restoration. If you would talk to a preservationist, when they use the term restoration, they literally mean restore it back to the original, to museum quality. And when you're talking about historical rehabilitation, is you're looking at what original materials or features of the building remain, keep them in place. When you do have to upgrade or modernize it, you make sure you do something that doesn't negatively counter that. So it's a sensitive rehabilitation rather than a literal restoration.
Mayor, just to put another counterpoint on that counterpoint.
I got department heads arguing with each other. This is classic.
I know the buildings you're referring to at Indianapolis Boulevard, a large quantity of them were powerless, full of junk from floor to ceiling, and basically were the storage area of a pack rat. They had no historical value. They were fire hazards. They were a nuisance. They were full of vermin. And a lot of the problems with the older buildings is they cannot be brought compliant to the ADA or to fire codes without a substantial amount of work, which would exceed the value of the property. The doors were narrower, a wheelchair can't get through, there was stairs and no lifts, the windows are too small to escape out of. And so a lot of the older buildings are just no longer compliant with current safety codes and ADA compliance codes, and it's easier just to replace them with something compliant.
You guys are hearing a lot from policy experts. I'm going to forward to another one, Kurt Cook, who's Hammond's building commissioner. Kurt, could you inform us a little bit more?
No, first of all, we make every effort that we can to rehabilitate the property prior to having it demolished. Doesn't do anybody any good to tear it down and have a vacant lot that the city needs to maintain. So probably for every one that you see go through demolition, we get 3 or 4 or 5 that get fixed up. And that's a good thing. Makes this man happy. Every time we tear down a home, that's less taxes that's being paid, means his budget is smaller. So we try to encourage the renovations wherever possible. City Attorney was absolutely right. When you get into buildings that are decrepit, the zoning ordinances and building codes require a certain amount of work to be done. When that work exceeds 50% of the value of the property, the state has deemed that we need to go off of current building codes as opposed to the building codes at the time it was built, which is pretty hard to take these buildings on Indianapolis Boulevard and make them handicap accessible, put in elevators, things like that are wrong. Just not possible to do. But we do try to work with them wherever possible. Another thing, that some of them are so old, so dried out, so decrepit, that even if they tried to rehabilitate them, it would just fail. Now, we get structural Well, if
hey
you
guys,
look over,
without squelching debate, is there any chance that we can maybe, it seems like we spent some time on this, if you can follow up, Mr. Camino, after the meeting with Kurt, and we can get a couple other people together on this, if you don't mind? I'm not trying to squelch debate, but it seems like after a while we start going into a particular issue, and I'm trying to keep it more general, okay? So I appreciate the question, Mr. Camino. Donna.
Sir, I am a graduate of the College Bound program. I think it is a great program. But several individuals have also graduated from the program but are still out of jobs. What are you doing to help those to find jobs after completing the College Bound program?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was anonymous also? Was that anonymous? Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, obviously we're working hard to bring jobs to the area, and it's nice. So you're a College Bound graduate? Nice to see you. Anybody want to jump in? Phil?
Sure. I mean, that's part of the thing when you're talking about, for example, the Walmart. There's a lot of people that are employed. You look for businesses that'll come in that employ a lot of people.
Hey, sir, could we answer a question? Sir, if everybody starts screaming from the audience, how is this going to work? It won't, okay? If you could just mind your own business and listen to answer. Then raise your hand, and we'll come answer. He's answering your question. So if you can please sit still and let him answer his question.
Let me also talk, just recently, the city of Hammond created our job creation business expansion program. And through this program, we are helping existing businesses in the city with, if they turn in business plans of how they want to expand their services, depending on what type of services they're offering, and they put together a business plan and show, because right now, it's hard for any business to get a loan from any bank out there. Banks aren't loaning money. They'll tell you they are, but they're not. So through this program, they can apply through us, through the city, through planning and development, and if approved, they can get money to expand services, and through that, they have to hire a certain amount of employees depending on how much money they borrow. So this is another way that, when you talk about unemployment, I look at it as a planning, economic development. This is our job to find jobs for people. So we're constantly trying to bring in new business in all areas of the city that will, bring jobs to people. And I know from being at the job fair today, there's a lot of people that are looking for jobs. We also had a lot of companies there that are expanding in the city of Hammond that are offering jobs. So it's just a couple ways that we're trying to attempt to address the job creation program.
Thanks, Phil. I appreciate it. I want to thank everybody for coming out to Mayor's Night tonight. I want to point out that this is probably one of the largest Mayor's Night. Is that the last question, Donna?
We still have one more, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, one more question.
I'm aware of the Wolf Lake project and the Pulaski Park recent upgrade. Are there future plans for upgrading parks like in Hessville?
Okay, great question. Usually we get that one when we're in the 6th, but Pat, why don't you talk a little bit about Miller School? And so obviously we just got done with Hessville Park, and then obviously Dowling Park with the Purdue Calumet expansion. We just announced a partnership with Purdue University Calumet. A lot going on in Hessville. Actually, I sort of answered it for you. Yeah. All right. So I guess when you take a look at Hessville, we're about to invest. You never know what Pat's going to say, so I'll just answer for him. We did a really good park project in Hessville with the Little League fields. The skateboard park, we modeled after that with the Pulaski Park skateboard park. Dowling Park is going to be home to Purdue Calumet Sports. We announced a partnership with Purdue Calumet. They're building basically their entire athletic program out of Dowling Park. And am I missing anything?
Caldwell Little League.
Thank you very much. Hessville Little League, outstanding complex. First District, one of the largest crowds we've ever had for Mayor's Night. I want to thank you for that. I want to thank those of you that are first timers and urge you to come back again, even if you aren't successful in your elected official seeking. You're always welcome to come back to Mayor's Night. Donna?
I just want to tell everyone again, we have Jake in the back. If you have your Hammond ID, you get some light bulbs tonight. A grant from the Department of Energy.
Okay. Thank you all very much. Enjoy Mayor's Night Out. I will see you next month. Don't forget to vote on Tuesday. Thank you all.